They say Lake Tahoe is all postcards and ski lifts, blue water like cut glass, mountains wearing snow like crowns. That's the brochure. But at 300 feet down, sunlight gives up, and corners don't happen by accident. So if a diver's flashlight lands on a clean 90-degree angle, who built it? This isn't a campfire story. It's a logbook that never made the report. A late summer morning, no film crew, no Grant logos on the hull, just a 24-foot workboat and 3 names stitched on jackets. Mara, systems engineer, married to instruments, not to myths. Ortiz, former park ranger with a diver's calm and a habit of writing the truth on a slate before it turns into a legend. Glenn, cameraman who's filmed wrecks that never made the news. They launch before the tourists wake. The lake is a long, even breath, no drama on the surface. Off a rocky point where granite slides to blue, they tow a side-scan sonar that clicks and paints shadows. The ordinary grammar of Tahoe's bottom. Talus fans, sand waves, drowned logs that look like bones until the angle changes and they're just logs again. Then the screen draws a shape that refuses to be ordinary. Back it up, Mara says. Glenn eases the throttle. Ortiz leans in. On the monitor, a straight return, fake as a wall. They run the line again from a different heading. The straight line becomes 2, then 3. A corner that holds its geometry no matter how you slice across it. Which means one of 2 things. Nature learned Euclid, or someone left work down there. They drop a buoy. No speech, no hype. Just the quiet agreement of people who know when the day just got expensive. At 100 feet, the lake cools your thoughts. At 200, your world shrinks to the size of your flashlight. Would you push that beam farther into the unknown or back away? Ortiz doesn't back away. The water tightens into darkness. Silt hangs like slow smoke. The beam clears a tunnel through black, and in that tunnel the lake steps forward one precise shape at a time. Not suggestion, not maybe, a wall. It rises 2 body lengths from the bottom, stacked blocks the size of bathtubs, seems too clean for talus. The face bears faint, parallel striations, shallow scratches running downhill, like something heavy slid past many times. At the end, a corner your carpenter would sign his name to. If that's natural, nature brought a square. He writes on his slate with a gloved hand that can't decide if it's shaking from cold or from the thing in front of him. Wall, joint, right angle, striations. The ROV hums down compact, suitcase-sized, lights like twin stars. It noses the wall, backs off, pans. The tether arcs yellow in the beam, a lifeline to daylight and air. Halfway along the wall, Ortiz finds a change. A recess, 3 blocks wide, 1 block deep, like a doorway that began and then thought better of it. At the top edge, his beam catches something too deliberate to be a crack, too curved to be a fracture. He traces it, not a chip, not random, a mark. A star, not the classroom kind, but a compass, rose without letters, 1 arm longer than the rest, a tiny notch at its tip, pointing downhill. Pointing to what? He writes, mark, star, long arm. He runs a fingertip over the groove. Smooth. The silt won't settle in it. The stone remembers what the water tries to forget. On deck, nobody shouts. They've all been here in one way or another. The moment when cool formation turns into, we don't have a word for this yet. Glenn dumps footage to a hard drive like it's a living thing. Mara checks recorded depth, heading, temperature reality checks to keep the imagination honest. Natural? Glenn asks. Could be tufa, Mara says. Eyes still on the screen. Could be orthogonal joints in granite. Could be we want it to be something it isn't. Or Ortiz says simply, it is what it looks like. They make 2 more passes before the wind shifts. The geometry doesn't blink. Some truths write better on paper. Mara takes a drive to Dr. Judith Klein, a geologist who doesn't do fairy tales. Judith watches twice, no commentary. The 3rd time, she pauses over the recess. If this is jointed granite, she says, it's the most cooperative jointing I've seen. Tap tap on the screen where the star lives. That, though, that's not fracture behavior. Her 3-page memo speaks fluent caution. Features consistent with artificial modification, if confirmed, predate known settlement patterns of the basin. In plain English, if this is real, it's older than your history book. 2 days later, Judith calls with a different voice. The kind of voice you use when the curtains move and the windows are shut. I need to bow out, she says. Not a threat, just a suggestion. I misdirect my interest. A dry laugh that isn't humor. Our server logs lit up last night. Maintenance, they said. Also, my keycard was mysteriously disabled for a few hours. Scheduling glitch. That's not how you talk about two fine joints. That's how you talk about doors. The hard drive on Mara's desk goes missing with the kind of competence that doesn't break locks. The Marina kid quits without picking up his last check. Ortiz finds a note under his wiper. Please be careful out there. No signature. Friendly handwriting. None of this proves anything. All of it proves something. Judith repays an old favor with a cardboard archive box and a post-it that reads, "If I misfile this, please don't crack me." Inside, brittle VHS tapes. Labels in tidy block print. Tahoe Survey 1983. Tahoe South Ridge 1986. A third tape with no title, just a hand-drawn star. They borrow a VCR from a guy who collects electronics because he doesn't trust the future. The screen blooms with static. Then the past locks in. Old neoprene suit, rope around the waist, a flashlight like a car headlight. The water is too clear and then suddenly not chalk cloud when stone breathes, after being touched for the first time in a long time. On the 1986 tape, the beam steadies over something like stairs. 3 white treads, too big for a human gait, leading sideways into shadow. A gloved hand lifts a slate into frame. Steps? Each letter is a question. On the star tape, the angle matches Ortiz's recess like a ghost overlay. The groove is shallower or the silt is kinder, but the long arm points the same way, downslope. In the mic, you hear a diver chuckle once the sound of recognition, not joy. Of course, a voice says through a regulator. Of course what? The tape ends the way magnetic memory ends, by remembering how to forget. Same mark, same wall, different decade. How many times has the lake tried to tell this? They book a quiet week in October, when the lake is honest and the crowds go home. 2 boats this time. Redundancy isn't paranoia in cold water, it's manners. Tahoe in October turns steel. The air bites, the pines trade, whispers for a low voice that belongs to old things. At the ramp, a Washoe elder stands with his hands in his pockets, not watching them, not watching. Ortiz tips his cap. The man nods back like this is a conversation they've had before in another century. They tow the sonar over the buoy. The picture grows. The first wall has a partner set back in parallel, like an avenue between them. Between low, regular shapes, the tops of courses, half buried in silt. Farther, a rise shaped not like a boulder, not like chance, but like a plinth, a pedestal with nothing on it. Joint sets can be perpendicular. Mara says to the lake and to herself. Seismic stress can do weird orthogonal grids. Say it looks weird, Glenn says gently. It looks weird, Mara says. ROV first, always. The tether pays out smooth, the drone nudges the wall and backs off, polite as a guest in a museum. The camera noses the recess, hesitates, slips in a hair. Sound behaves like a body. In some places, you can bump into it. Inside the recess, the ROV's thrusters change pitch, and something behind the stone answers. Not an echo, a throat. The note rises when they touch it, falls when they back off like breath. Helmholtz resonance, Mara says. A hollow behind the face. Physics. What bottle big enough to sing like that? Glenn asks. You're in it, Ortiz says. What do you hear? Physics. Or a room answering back. At noon, the weather turns. Tahoe stacks a standing wave, a sage across the basin. Wind pushes on one end, gravity insists on fair play. The lake answers with a long, heavy pulse. The tether arcs, then goes tight. Not good. Glenn feathers, the motors. We're snagged, he says. No panic, just math. The ROV is nosing at the recess, tail caught in something that shouldn't be there. On me, Ortiz says, already clipping in. Not our first rodeo. Under the Seiche, the lake is two lakes, upper water sliding east, deeper water pushing west. Where they meet, everything shimmers like heat over asphalt. Ortiz works through it, one hand on the tether, one on rock when there's rock to hold. The line disappears into a thin seam at the corner where two blocks pretend they're not blocks. He tries a gloved fingertip too tight. He slides in a 3-foot length of stiff wire he carries for this exact kind of dishonor. The wire explores open space where there shouldn't be any open, then corner, then open again. He works it like a key. Something inside yields, not a snap, an agreement. The tether slacks. Then his primary flashlight flickers and dies. He goes instantly to back up muscle memory, not thought. Cold finds his neck sealed like a hand. For a heartbeat, the hum in the recess turns lower, like the lake inhaled and forgot to exhale. He's fine. He is fine. He moves up, out, breathing slow, counting. On deck, nobody says, close call. They ride the ROV, check the housing, swap a battery that was new this morning. Code does that. Code decides. They film the scene from above. The crack isn't just separation, there's a geometry to the shadow inside. A cavity with edges. Are you seeing what you want to see? Or is the stone tired of pretending? That evening, the dock lamps throw golden cones into black water. Moths scribble letters no one can read. A man in a faded cap sits with a styrofoam cup, warming his hands and watching boats come back like a habit he never unlearned. You're the ones going down, he says. Not quite a question. We're going down, Ortiz says. Ren charters backwind, the man says. People come up with fish stories. I have a whole school of them. He almost smiles at his own line, then lets it sink. Took a fella out 2086 or so. He did work we don't print on cards. Thought he saw stairs. Said a word I won't repeat. University sent a kid with a clipboard and a pen that didn't write. Week later, the kid's number just stopped ringing. He sips. October's moody. Sometimes you think it's wind you're feeling. Sometimes it ain't. You can call that folklore or field notes. Morning fog sits low like a held breath. A woman waits at the ramp, shoulder-length gray hair, calm eyes, lanyard with a small badge that doesn't say which agency has its name on her pay stub. Word travels, she says, without making a federal case out of it. You're not the first to bring a camera. You won't be the last. Be careful what you call what you saw. We haven't called it anything, Mara says. Good, the woman says. Keep it that way. She looks out at the still water as if it's an old coworker she respects and distrusts equally. I've read reports from the 80s, the 60s, last drought too, when the shore walked backward and people went places they shouldn't. Every one of those has two kinds of voices. The ones who say Tufa, joint, Sage, and the ones who say city. The degrees are right until they aren't. The legends are wrong until they aren't. A small smile. You'll do what you're going to do. Name? Glenn asks. Grace, she says. No last name, no agency, just Grace. Blessing or curse? Yes. Back out. Because not going back out is worse. The ROV finds a second recess. Its note is a thin high A compared to yesterday's low F. When Glenn trims the thrusters, the tone beats against itself, a slow wow-wow that you don't so much hear as feel behind the breastbone. They drift along the lower courses, past a defect where the seam isn't tight, on a dusty ledge where silt has made a home white shells. Not many. Enough to prove that life doesn't care what we call a structure as long as it can sit on it. The camera lingers on the carved star. Close, it's a groove. Farther, it wants to be a trick again. The long arm keeps pointing. Where? They don't force anything. No saws, no chisels. The lake can punish greed without lifting a wave. They log coordinates, headings, depths. They write down the way the note rose and fell like a room breathing when they tap the stone. They say out loud what they'll say on paper later. We filmed, we logged, we did not name it. At the ramp, the Washoe elder passes again. He stops because you stop when two different conversations cross in the third place. Did you see it? He asks. Not hunger, a kind of weather report. We saw shapes we can name 2 ways, Ortiz says. The elder nods like anything else would be a lie. When I was small, they told me not to look into the water at night, not because of monsters, because of mirrors. He lifts his chin toward the lake. You bring fear, you'll see the shadow of fear. You bring hunger, you'll see what you think will feed you. Best to bring respect and leave with a question. What do you call it? Mara asks, against her better sense. He smiles. We call it the lake, he says gently. We call it by its name, and we don't ask it to be more than that. That night, in the rental cabin that smells like pine cleaner and old coffee, they run the day's footage again. On the 4th pass, Glenn overlays a frame from the 1986 tape over today's recess. The star fits. Too well or just well enough. Say it's construction, Glenn says. Who built at 300 feet? Slow death without a bell, without compressors. Unless the basin was shallower, unless the ground moved. Landslide? Subsidence? A plaza that walked downhill by inches and centuries? Say it's geology. Mara counters, steady as ever. Orthogonal joint says activated by seismic stress, planed by currents. Recesses are preferential weathering. The star is a conchoidal fracture we're reading as a symbol because primates love symbols. The hum is a Helmholtz cavity. Physics. No conspiracy required. Or both, Ortiz says. Stone makes a shape, hands finish it. We're not choosing a team. We're admitting the answer's big whichever way leans. City or stone, either answer rewrites the map. Last morning, the plan is not to prove. The plan is to listen. They lower a weighted cord into the recess and let it just kiss the stone. The note rises a soft complaint and settles. No code, no chorus of angels, just the sound of water in the place it likes to be. Still, all 3 of them feel the same impossible thought at the same time. Someone once stood here when this wasn't water. Someone carved a long-armed compass because it pointed to something that mattered when the sun was on their necks and the air was in their lungs. Back at the ramp, Grace is waiting like the punchline that keeps being true. You file a report, she says. Word it the way you word things carefully. It'll sit in the folder with the others, she adds. Some are blacked out till they look like space. Some look like yours. None of them go away. Why? Glenn asks. Not angry, tired. Grace keeps her gaze on the water's salesman blue surface. Because we love 2 things that disagree, she says. We love knowing what the world is, and we love believing there's one more room just outside the map. Hand people a key, and half will use it, half will hide it. Both types write memos. The elder drifts by again and tips his hat. When you tell your story, he says, tell it soft, let the water keep its share. That's how we live with lakes. So here's the soft version. In a lake that can take your breath and never give it back, there are forms on the bottom that hold their angles when the light moves. There is a mark that looks like a star if you've ever stared long enough to learn what the sky does. There is a note behind stone that rises when you touch it and falls when you let go, as if the room on the other side has a pulse. A diver this year put his hand where a diver in 1986 put his hand. The stone didn't think that was strange. A scientist wrote the careful words that protect a career and still managed to say the unbelievable thing. A woman with a badge and no agency warned them to be careful what they called it. An elder reminded them that not every question is an invoice for an answer. Tahoe went on being a lake, which might be the strangest thing of all. What sits at 300 feet? Walls? Tufa? A drowned terrace where people bartered obsidian blades? A fault plane pretending to be architecture? Maybe there was a people here who cut blocks and carved the compass and listened to water sing. Maybe geology wrote an alphabet that looks like ours and we read ourselves into it. Maybe it's both. If you need a certainty, this will frustrate you. If you can live with a doorway, this will feed you for years. They file the report, cautious words live longer. Features consistent with artificial modification. Orthogonal jointing hypothesis remains viable. Helmholtz resonance observed in subfacial cavity. It does not say city. It does not say star. It does not say someone is already listening. But in the margin where a pencil once rested too long, a small mark remains 5 quick lines crossing, one longer than the others. A joke, a promise, a reminder that some symbols can't help themselves. You can rent a kayak any weekend, drift over water that has memorized the sky for 10,000 years. Listen, if you hear nothing, that's evidence too. If you feel that small prickle behind the heart, the one that arrives at the edge of blue, that's evidence of a different kind. Would you put your own light into the recess? Would you press your palm to the stone and wait for the code to name itself? Would you accept yes, maybe, and we don't know yet as equally honest answers? There will be another boat, another buoy. Someone younger will clip a slate, tap it twice the way Ortiz does, and write one word in block letters for whoever follows the line into dark. Seen. And the lake will answer the way lakes answer, by lying very still and letting us tell each other what we think we heard. This was Kawimer Chronicles of Hidden Places. We don't promise answers. We promise doorways.